Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Henry. I'm the city's public information officer, and I'm here to help out with tonight's meeting about the Dignity Village project. Before we hear a presentation from our city staff and our partners, Dignity Moves and 5 Keys Schools and Programs, I want to let you know how you can participate. During the presentation and at any time tonight, if you have a question, please enter it in the chat. We'll be collecting all of the questions we receive, and we'll answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. We also want to hear your comments. So after we've answered your questions, we'll allow everyone up to 2 minutes of public comments, and I will share my screen at that time so that you'll see a timer and you can see how much time you have remaining. At the end of the meeting, we'll share next steps, including more ways to engage with this project. But before we get started, we wanted to share these meeting ground rules with everyone here today. Next slide. Perfect. We gathered these meeting ground rules from a recent meeting, and we thought they worked really well, so we wanted to share them again. The first is to respect others' opinions. We're gathering input, and we expect to hear multiple viewpoints. Next is to be respectful when sharing your comments. We want you to speak from your own perspectives and not make any assumptions. Provide input when directed during the meeting. So that's, at any time during the meeting, we want you to share your questions to the chat, like I said, and then we'll do comments during that public comment period. And then finally, technology happens. Please be flexible and patient as we're still in this kind of Zoom environment. So thank you for that. And then next, I want to introduce you to the city staff that are present tonight. Lisa Maxwell has served as the Community Development Director since December 2020, and prior to her appointment, she served as the Assistant City Attorney specializing in real estate and contract matters. Ms. Maxwell has over 25 years of experience in real estate and also has been a resident of the City of Alameda for over 25 years. Lois Butler manages the City of Alameda's Economic Development and Community Services Division. She oversees social services and homeless programs in Alameda and is responsible for growing Alameda's tax and employment bases. Combined, Ms. Butler has nearly 4 decades of experience in economic development, real estate development, construction management, and social services. And we have Veronica Cole. She's the Community Development Department's Community Services Manager. She holds over 25 years of experience in social services, including over 9 years of leadership experience in programming that improve the outcomes of individuals who are homeless or are formerly homeless. I can see that Mayor Essie Ashcraft has joined us tonight, and I'll let folks know if any other of our elected officials are here. And I also see, except that I'm not looking at everybody side by side, but that one of our I can see City Manager Eric Levitt. Hi, City Manager Eric Levitt. And I can see that our Shrub board member, Kristen Verici Fong, is here as well. So thank you again, all of you, for joining us. And I'd now like to turn things over to Veronica Cole for our presentation.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Wanted to start off by doing introductions of our partners in the Dignity Village project. So Sharon Lai, would you like to introduce your team at Dignity Moves?
Sure, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Lai, and I'm the Executive Director of Dignity Moves. We're a nonprofit developer for the project, and I am joined here today with my colleague, Mike McCulloch, who is our project manager, and then and also Gensler is our architect of record for this project. And we have 2 of them joining tonight, Amanda, who will be leading the presentation, but Drew's also here as backup to answer any technical questions as well. So thanks.
Great. And also would like to introduce Steve Good, who can introduce the 5 Key Schools and Programs team that will be doing operations and services at the project.
Great, thanks, Veronica. I'm Steve Good. I'm the CEO of 5 Keys. I'm also a 2nd generation Alamedian. In fact, my brother and his family still lives at Alameda. Joining me tonight is Elise Graham, who's our Chief Operations Officer, Evelyn Nelson, who's our Director of Housing, and Alicia Glinda, who is a Deputy Director of Housing. Just very briefly about 5 Keys, we currently operate 9 different housing programs for the unsheltered homeless population in the Bay Area, in San Francisco and Oakland. And we're incredibly excited about this opportunity in Alameda.
Great, thank you. So we have a presentation tonight, and as we mentioned, there's a chance for questions and answers. You can put questions into the chat, and we'll get started and provide some information for you about our Dignity Village project that we're very excited about. So if we could go to the next slide. And we could actually forward to the next slide. So Dignity Village has 3 partners. The City of Alameda has acted as a lead applicant for a Project Home Key grant, with the Community Development Division leading the direction and coordination of this project. An agency of the City of Alameda owns a parcel of land that we are using. Also, Dignity Moves as a nonprofit organization. A nonprofit organization building interim supportive housing projects around the state. Dignity Moves is serving as a project developer. 5 Key Schools and Programs is the nonprofit service provider who is acting as the operator and service provider for this project. Next slide. So this is one of Alameda's initiatives to prevent and respond to homelessness. It responds to the Road Home, a 5-year strategic plan to prevent and respond to homelessness in Alameda. On October 5th, 2021, the Alameda City Council approved the Road Home, a 5-year strategic plan to prevent and respond to homelessness in Alameda. And this plan was developed with significant community input. Dignity Village matches 2 of the strategies in the strategic plan, which include strategy 2.2, providing low barrier housing focused temporary housing, and strategy 2.3, expanding outreach and supportive services to unsheltered households. Next slide. So Home Key Round 2 funding. We are very excited that we've received a significant grant award from the state of California for Dignity Village. The California Department of Housing and Community Development has made approximately $1.4 billion in grant funding available to local public entities, and the city of Alameda was able to receive a $12.25 million grant. Through an RFP process, the city selected 5 keys and Dignity Moves as partners to complete an application to the state of California for a Home Key Round 2 funding. On March 1st of this year, these co-applicants were notified of an award for $12.25 million to build Dignity Village to provide interim supportive housing for the unhoused in Alameda. The city also has a matching award of $2,350,000 pending from Alameda County. State Home Key is designed to quickly build shelter and housing to address the crisis of homelessness. To qualify for a full grant amount, Dignity Village must be constructed within 8 months of the grant award, which began on March 1st. Our Home Key grant award of $12.25 million is tied to a specific proposal provided to the state of California by the state of California to the state of California. Because of this, we are unable to change the key aspects of this project, such as the number of units or who is served, and still be able to maintain our access to Home Key funding. Next slide. So the Home Key project, Dignity Village, will be constructed at 2350 5th Street. The proposed site is located in the ideal area adjacent to the College of Alameda and near the Alameda Landing Shopping Center. The bus stop for AC Transit Line 96 is just minutes away on foot. As you can see, the parcel of land has an awkward shape and is known as a bottle parcel. And that land is actually owned by an agency of the city of Alameda. Next slide. So Dignity Village will provide 47 private units of interim supportive housing. This includes 38 units for chronically homeless adults, which are individuals who have been homeless for a longer period of time, 4 units for homeless adults who have been homeless for a shorter period of time, and 5 units for transitional aged youth, which includes those exiting out of the foster care system. They're youth who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And Dignity Village will include 8 units adapted for individuals with mobility, hearing, or vision disabilities. Guests at Dignity Village will receive supportive services, which allows Dignity Village to become a pipeline to permanent housing and greater financial independence. Staffing at Dignity Village will be for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Next slide. Participants for Dignity Village will be drawn from the Alameda County's coordinated entry system, with priority given to individuals in the city of Alameda. It's key to be in the system if you are looking for housing or shelter. So in anticipation of this project and in general, if you know somebody who's looking for housing, it's important to contact the Village of Love to set up an appointment for an intake. And I have the contact information here. So if you or someone you know is looking for shelter or housing, we encourage you to call this number and you can be in the system. And this would be one way you could make use of the Dignity Village project. And with that, next slide. I'd like to pass it on to Sharon Lai, who will tell us a little bit more about the construction and the design of the project.
Great. Thank you, Veronica. You covered a lot already. I'll just add one point. I think we should all feel really proud of ourselves. The Bay Area, the HCD, the state actually allocated a pot of $200 million for the Bay Area. And Alameda was successful at basically getting 6% of the Bay Area allocation, which is nothing to sneeze at. So I think, this has been a really big, massive team effort with the city. And I do feel very proud of our partnership here. Let's go ahead and go into the next slide, please. Great. So I'll start with just describing a little bit about our role. So, as Veronica mentioned, we're a nonprofit developer for this project. We created this nonprofit to actually build interim supportive homeless housing projects around the state. Some of our projects are temporary in nature, such as some of the images that you're seeing here is an example of our pilot project in San Francisco. We're also currently under construction for a pilot in Santa Barbara, as well as a second home key project in the city of Rona Park. And so, for the Alameda project, as Veronica mentioned, we are intending to use the entirety of the capital portion of the HCD grant to fund the construction and fabrication of this project. If for whatever reason we need additional funds, our commitment as the nonprofit partner here is to assist with our city partner as well as our operating partner, Five Keys, with philanthropy. We will take on the role of fundraising to help supplement whatever gaps that we'll need to fill here. So we're really committed to seeing this project through and making sure that it's a success. I think with that, I'm just going to hand it off to Amanda, who is again with our architecture team representing Gensler tonight. She's going to share a bit about our current site plan and walk through the programming of the site. I think that's the next slide, right?
Lois, can you?
Oh, there's one more, sorry. So our goal is, sorry, we switched around things a little bit. So our goal is definitely to try to provide an attractive place where people will essentially, we're trying to remove the barriers from people to accept shelter. My goal here is to create a welcoming environment, a physical environment that is safe and dignified, with all of the physical wraparound amenities that would be necessary to support someone into stability. But quite frankly, we're just building the shell, the physical infrastructure here. A lot of the hard work and the magic really happens with our operator, Five Keys, who will be working, daily 24/7 to help connect people with the appropriate services and to support them in ways that they need. And I know that they're going to go into details about that. But as Veronica mentioned, this is a community of 47 individual units. Each of them will have their own private bathroom facilities. There will also be common amenities on site, such as dining and a case management offices and other community spaces. But the goal is to provide people with a secured and stable environment where they can, come indoors, feel safe, where they're not going to have to worry about their belongings, and have a calm place to really rebuild their lives and to really start, being able to pathway themselves into some sort of permanent situation. And I think the next slide is the Gensler slides, right? Great.
Yes. Okay, good.
Amanda.
All right, thank you very much. So as was mentioned earlier, we're just going to, before we jump into the site plan, I just wanted to highlight so that it's not confusing. Just because this is such a long site and we wanted to make it very clear for everyone to see on the screen, we're going to rotate the site plan so that 5th Street will be at the top of the page and North will be facing the right hand side. So we're going to focus on the south portion of the site where the project is based, and just before you get to that bottleneck piece up at the top. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so as was already mentioned, and as Sharon just mentioned, the goal here was really to create a welcoming and dignified community that will blend into the larger neighborhood. So it's being designed as a permanent community that will host an interim community living within it. So we want this to blend into the neighborhood, to be welcoming, to be, to be dignified, to have elements of landscape design that are nods to the existing neighborhood around it. And first and foremost, it must meet all zoning regulations. So to start out, around the perimeter of the site, there's a generous landscape buffer around the entire site that will be designed to both take cues from the surrounding neighborhood, as I mentioned, but also to provide some visual privacy and landscaping for the site, which will be designed by a partner landscape architect as we jump into the design of that currently in the next month or so. Currently, it's a very visible open piece of land, and so we thought it was important to give that generous landscape buffer to soften it up and to provide that privacy and that welcoming environment. There will also be fencing around the entire site and at the two main points of entry for both pedestrians and vehicles. So the pedestrian entry, you can see towards the center of the screen there in light gray. Pedestrians or residents that are coming home will be entering into an open communal space that you can see in pink. And that community space will have overhead festoon or cafe string lighting. It will have lounge seating and will be considered the community core. So we really want that to be welcoming, engaging, and a place where people can come and find community and find their space. It's flanked at the north end. There are a few orange boxes that you'll see. There's a check-in station, and then those are offices that will be managed by 5 Keys for those supportive services that were mentioned previously. At the southern portion of that community zone, there's a communal dining hall, and in blue, you can see a small laundry facility for residents. And then over to the right, there is a larger meeting and flex space for residents and for staff to come together if they have a meeting or if there's a game night or something like that. We'll leave that up to 5 Keys, but it's a flex space in that zone. And then behind that building, there's another bank of blue. If we could go one slide down. Behind that, thank you. Behind the meeting space, there's another bank of blue. These are restrooms, and they will be to support they're mainly staff restrooms. And if someone is using the dining hall, as Sharon mentioned, everyone will have their own private restroom in their residence. In addition, outside of that main communal space, over to the right, you can see there's a large community garden. And then further north, there's a pet area and some storage area that would be screened with landscape along 5th Street. All the way on the west-hand side of the site, or page west, it's really the south end of the site, excuse me, you would have a gated and paved parking lot, and that will have a staff member to check people in as you enter that. So it is a gated lot, as I mentioned. There's areas for trash and electrical equipment along the front that would be screened. And then you have bike storage, site storage, and residential storage that you can see down in that southwest on the page. And then the bulk of the site are, as you can see in the white boxes, are the residences themselves. So there are 24 residences on the first floor, and then just these white boxes that you can see, just the residential units, will be 2 stories. So there are 23 on the second floor to make up the 47 total residential units. So we can jump to the second slide and see that second floor. So there are 2 staircases that will bring you up to the second floor. So residents could be at the plan northwest or plan southeast to access that second story, as I mentioned. And there would be decking, exterior decking all the way around the second level in order to access those residences. And then on the bottom left-hand side, that orange block that you can see, there would be a second story space for a janitor's closet and storage room as well. And then on the next slide, we have a few examples of the proposed vendor that we're coordinating with. These are some of their example projects from the past. So from a scale perspective, the image all the way on the left or the image in the bottom at the center are approximately the scale. The upper left is 3-story, we would be 2-story, but it'll give you an idea of how those units would stack, those residential units would stack, and there would be an open staircase to either side. And then that center top image is an example of what could be potentially a nice precedent for us for the single-story buildings, which would be the dining hall, the laundry space, the meeting room, and the offices. And then over to the right-hand side, you can see 2 interior shots of a typical space from this vendor. So there's a restroom shot in each individual residential unit, and then the living space or the sleeping space in that unit as well. And then I'll give it back to you, Sharon.
Great. I'm not sure if there's another slide for my section, Veronica. Could we go down one slide? Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for that. So just to cover a little bit of the timeline, I know Veronica already mentioned that our HCD clock, the state's grant clock, started on our award date, which was March 1st. We are busily trying to currently finish up our design and permitting right now in the second quarter of 2022. As Veronica also mentioned, the state allows us basically a maximum of 12 months to spend the dollars. However, in order to optimize and fully receive the entire maximum award, we have to actually complete it in 8 months. And so we are working very hard to try to complete and occupy by the end of October. We're currently aiming to start construction and fabrication basically next quarter, so into the summer and fall. And then I think that's probably the end of our section, Veronica. So I'm going to hand it off to Steve Good, who is with 5 Keys.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. Actually, Elise Graham is going to do our presentation.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Elise Graham with 5 Keys, and I want to start off by telling you a little bit about 5 Keys. We started in 2003 as an accredited high school for adults, and we've expanded to be so much more. We now offer career and college counseling, workforce development, transitional employment, and case management. Steve mentioned before that as far as housing, we've got 9 interim sites, interim and permanent supportive sites, both in San Francisco and in Oakland. And in Alameda City, we recently operated the Marina Village isolation and quarantine site where we served 123 residents during the Omicron surge. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this picture you're looking at is our Bayview Navigation Center. It's the first navigation center we opened in 2018. We launched this to provide a new experience for our neighbors experiencing homelessness, as an opportunity for the residents to have dignity and personal agency and be treated like guests. We emphasize customer service and building solid relationships with each of our guests. We recognize the trauma that homelessness brings and are trained in culturally responsive approaches to conflict resolution and de-escalation. Early on when we opened this shelter, we heard comments like, "No one ever asked me or listened to what I want or need when I'm in a shelter. You guys really listen." Next slide, please. Our guests expressed so much gratitude for having a safe place and support and stabilizing their lives. I want to take a moment just to talk about a few of our guests. For example, last year, a woman I'll call Alicia moved into the 5 Keys interim housing site in Oakland called Oak Days. She escaped domestic violence with her 2 11-year-old sons, one of whom is autistic. Even though she qualified for a rent subsidy, she couldn't find a suitable place. She worked closely with our housing navigators who were ultimately able to find her a 3-bedroom home. As excited as she was, Alicia couldn't move in right away because she had no furnishings. She managed to save enough to get a bed for each of her sons, and 5 Keys staff gathered and donated items that were needed for her to comfortably move into her new home. The day she moved into her home, she told our staff they had saved her life and she was forever grateful. She recently reached out to us to let us know she's happy, doing well, and continuing to work at her job. She also shared both of her sons are doing well in school. Another man I'll call Chris is a current resident at Oak Days. His family coach has told us Chris is now drug-free, attending therapy, is more engaged, and is taking a vested interest in securing permanent housing. One of our team members, Jackie, recently ran into a couple from Oak Days that we helped find housing. They've now been in their apartment for over a year. When Jackie said, "What do you like most about your apartment?" the woman said, "Having a kitchen." So we all take for granted what it is to be able to prepare food, but imagine trying to get by without a place to store or prepare a simple sandwich or meal. We're confident these examples of our guests' success will be reflected in the Dignity Village guests as well. Next slide, please. Five Keys believes the first step towards changing lives begins with housing. We follow a housing first approach. Housing First is an evidence-based, well-accepted approach to serving people experiencing homelessness. It recognizes that a homeless person must first be able to access a decent, safe place to live before stabilizing, improving health, reducing harmful behaviors, or increasing income. Preconditions and barriers to entry, such as sobriety or participation in treatment, are removed to allow an individual or family immediate access to shelter and supportive services. It's the most effective approach ending chronic homelessness, according to the federal government. We'll be prioritizing Alamedians. Five Keys will admit guests referred by the coordinated entry system, whose intake process assesses potential residents to determine housing needs and priority placement based on criteria such as health, vulnerability, houselessness service history, and housing barriers. Next slide, please. Our services are the crux of our work. As a couple of people have said before, we're on site 24/7. We're providing services to each guest where they are. Our care managers build trusting relationships. They focus on getting the guests to be housing ready, using individualized service plans. They assist them enrolling in public benefits, mental health and substance abuse programs, referrals to medical services. At Dignity Village, we'll also have on-site consultations and referrals for mental health. Our ambassadors, who you see two examples right here, are our frontline staff. They provide guest services and security. They're trained in CPR, first aid, Narcan, professional standards, and heavy training on de-escalation skills. Because they're on site and they have the opportunity to build these relationships with our guests, they're able to de-escalate situations and mitigate issues quickly. We also have an activities coordinator who plans and runs groups from art, storytelling, life skills, financial literacy, AA, parenting, nutrition, all driven by the needs of the guests in the center. We also have pet support where we provide muzzles and leashes and facilities for the pets, as well as vets and stuff like that. In addition, Five Keys will provide high school and GED education, as well as collaboration in college and career with College of Alameda, and referrals to workforce training. We have two partners, one Cypress Mandela in Oakland, and also Firestone right there at Alameda Point. Next slide, please. When we launched the Embarcadero Safe Navigation Center, which you're seeing here, we worked closely with the community to ensure that we were great neighbors. Once we opened, many in the community came by to donate socks, clothes, and other items because they were so excited to contribute. Our 24/7 hotline also gave the community ready access to Five Keys at Embarcadero. At Dignity Village, we will have an advisory committee in collaboration with the City of Alameda, Five Keys, and interested community members to ensure that we're hearing and responding to your ideas and feedback from the community. We've already established a 24/7 hotline where community members can call and talk to the supervisor once open and provide feedback. In addition to maintaining a beautiful, welcoming environment for the guests inside the Dignity Village itself, we also pride ourselves on maintaining the area outside for the community. So you'll see that we'll be maintaining the area along that 5th Street corridor to ensure there's no trash, etc. Our goal is to make this part of Alameda even more beautiful than it is today. There's a couple of studies on the impact of the San Francisco navigation centers on neighborhoods that was done by the University of California, Berkeley in May of 2018. Just to point out a couple things that were identified. The San Francisco Police Department data indicated that navigation centers have no effect on crime in the neighborhood. The number of crimes occurring near navigation centers was approximately equal to those crimes committed elsewhere. Also, about half of the surveyed community members felt that visible homelessness actually decreased after a navigation center opened in their neighborhood. That's something we can attest to in the Embarcadero as well. A quarter of the individuals believed that visible homeless had stayed the same, and a quarter believed it increased. And property values continue to rise in all neighborhoods, regardless of the existence of the navigation center. Next slide, please. So we strive to make the site safe and secure. There are no drugs or alcohol allowed to be used in the public space in or around Dignity Village. We have the designated, which I think Amanda mentioned, a designated smoking area on site. The area is monitored constantly by staff who are floating around through the facility and outside onto the sidewalk. I mentioned the clean space outside. All pets are on leashes, and when they're in the facility as well as when they leave. And if there are guests that are not, that can't be safely housed at this site, they'll be directed elsewhere. Every guest that enrolls or comes in signs of rules of responsibility and also pet rules when they enter. So that's it for me, and I'll give it back to Sarah, I think, or somebody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's the end of our PowerPoint. Yeah, thank you. So we can move into questions.
Great. So thank you to our presenters. That was a great presentation. And I will say that I've only received a few questions. So if you have questions, enter them into the chat and we'll go ahead and answer those before we go into our public comment period. For the public comment period, we'll ask you to just click the raise hand icon and then we'll call on you as your hands are raised. So the first question that came in, the person said that the location is pretty small and next to the College of Alameda and a block from an elementary school. They were wondering if there's been any research done to determine if this will impact kids in school or college. Elise, do you want to?
I can't speak to any specific research that's been done as far as kids in school and college, but what we have seen is in the neighborhoods where we are, that the neighborhood actually, many of the residents in the neighborhood feel better. They feel like it's safer. People are inside of a safe environment. They're changing their lives as opposed to being on the street, sleeping in a tent right down the street or whatever. So I can't speak to any direct evidence as far as research, but that's what we've experienced.
Sharon, did you want to address that?
Well, we're the builders here, but I wanted to maybe ask if Elise, you might want to speak to the outreach and partnership that you might be working on with the college.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of outreach we do, not just to the college, but to the neighboring businesses as well as the community. So we're the expectation is to reach out and get everybody connected and let them know what we're doing, be a referral source, like let them know. Sometimes they'll see somebody as people want to donate things. I think it's really being part of the community is what's really important. Steve mentioned he's a second generation Alamedean. My children and grandchildren live out on the point. Like, we believe in the community. And so that connection is what in every spot that we are, that's really the environment where we have to make the difference. We have to become part of the community with this site and be integrated in order for it to be successful for our guests and for everybody, for the residents of Alameda and our staff.
And if I could add one additional thing, when we opened up the Bayshore Navigation Center, there was quite a bit of opposition because it was in an exclusive neighborhood right on the waterfront next to $1 million homes and a high-rise tower. And through the community engagement process and the advisory committee, over time, we eventually changed the hearts and minds of those that lived in the neighborhood and had concerns through our efforts to clean up the neighborhood, to move people along, to help keep the area clean and safe. And when we went up for renewal just a few months ago after our initial lease was up, well, the first time when the center was up, there were lawsuits to try and block it from being built. When we were up for renewal with the port to extend our lease there for 2 more years, there wasn't a single opposition vote or voice or public comment opposed to the extension of that for 2 years. And that kind of speaks to, the impact that safe, secure housing can have for the unsheltered and unhoused, and with a provider that really cares about the community.
Thank you
Or
so
maybe-
much.
Sorry,
Go
I'll
ahead.
maybe add one more thing. I think I can't speak specifically to Alameda's data, but I'm sure this is something that the city and the county will be tracking as well. Part of the requirements on county funds generally require a lot of reporting, and I'm sure that it's something we will be looking at. But just speaking to state statewide numbers, we actually see quite a large percentage of college and school age children who experience homelessness. The statewide number that I'm familiar with is around 14%. So, through this project, we're really hoping that we could be supporting the communities around here, including families and college students who might be experiencing, unstable housing situations. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Next question is asking, the person's asking, are there sobriety or drug testing requirements? And if so, what's the frequency?
So there are no sobriety or drug testing requirements. That's one of the tenets of Housing First, is that folks can come in and live there, but there's no drug use or substance use or even anything beyond cigarettes in the designated smoking area. So they won't be using drugs in the facility, in the general area, or outside on the sidewalks or anything like that.
Okay, great. I think we're going to have some follow-up questions for that, but I'll get back to those in line. The next person was talking, they were putting in their question when the last speaker was talking, and they were saying it's a very good initiative, but I think when Steve was talking, how is the nearby community feeling about this? So Steve or Elise, I don't know.
Yeah, so we're hoping that through this engagement process, we will hear more from the community. This will be the first of an ongoing, non-stopping, the life that we operate that facility. We hope to have an advisory committee with, like we did in San Francisco, where we started with monthly meetings. We now transition to quarterly meetings, and now we're looking at even potentially even making those only a couple times a year because they've been so successful. So we hope to have community input during the entire time this the facility is being constructed, and once it's operational, to keep that dialogue going. We want the feedback because we want to hear what we're doing right. We want to hear what we need to improve on.
Great, thank you. The next person asked what the public outreach effort was for this project. They noted that they live across the street and they hadn't received any notice about the project. They received notice through a neighbor. I'll just add, I work on communications for the city. And so we had we had developed a list of folks that were interested in the project. That's an ongoing list that you can subscribe to on our website. And so we did send out notice to the residents that were on that list. We also posted it on the city's website, on the city's social media, on Nextdoor, on Facebook, and on Twitter. So we tried to get the message out as much as possible, but we'll also be able to post a recording of this meeting because we do know that we weren't able to get to everybody. Veronica, I don't know, were we able to do flyers as well, or was?
No, we didn't do flyers.
Okay.
At the end of the meeting, we're also going to share a place where people can go to join that email list. I don't know if I should share it now, if that would be helpful.
I can share it in the chat after we move on to the next question.
Sure.
Great. Okay, so then the next person said that they missed the first portion of the presentation, but they asked, beyond construction, what is the funding, where is the funding for this coming from to sustain the center over its lifetime? What will the city do if crime does increase and home prices do fall? So I have two separate questions. Let's go with the first one first. What's the funding coming from to sustain the center over its lifetime?
So the funding, this is Lois Butler, and the funding is coming from Home Key Project initially, and the County of Alameda and the City of Alameda. Over time, the city and its partner, Five Keys, will look to raise money to fund the operations of the center. Also, the city has indicated that it is committed to this project, but we are looking to write grants and raise funds for the operations.
Great, thank you. Another person, they asked, what was the process for determining the site?
So we did an RFP, request for proposal, and we asked providers to find locations, and the city council also was interested in another site, and so we listed that site on the RFP, as well as staff had recommended the this site, we call it the bottle parcel site, because it is one that had been vacant for a number of years that we were trying to develop housing on.
Great, thank you. So the question sorry for, I skipped ahead, but the second question that the other person had, they asked, what will the city do if crime does increase and home prices do fall because of this project?
Well, we haven't experienced that in our research. We haven't seen that home prices would fall, so we don't want to speculate on something that hasn't happened to date with homeless housing of this sort.
Great. Okay, the next question, will there be on-site security?
Yeah,
Elisa.
so Five Keys ambassadors are also provide the security. So we do this in-house because we found that the integration of our staff, rather than having an outside security company, that they're able to de-escalate things that they wouldn't otherwise if they're security guards. So we know how to work with our guests, and we know how to assist them and anticipate their needs, and we can tell when someone's having a rough day and all of those things. So Five Keys provides the security under the ambassadors that I was talking about.
And then Elisa, another question for you. Will there be on-site drug and alcohol counseling and support services?
Yeah, so that's a piece that the housing navigators do as well, and the care managers. We also do with the activities coordinator, we'll bring in like some safe use classes, some AA, Al-Anon, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, different groups based on the population. It really depends what's needed. And so there's a lot of different opportunities to do that. And we do focus on that a lot, actually.
Great. And then I think, Steve, this might be a question for you. How can someone join the community advisory committee that you talked about?
Great. Well, I think this is like our first meeting and our first foray into that with Alameda. And so I think the upcoming, I assume we have a list going of names, participants here.
Exactly.
That will keep going in the social media outreach that the city has been continuing to do. And as we get further along with this, also Five Keys will be going in to businesses and trying to let people know what's happening with this this project and try and encourage folks to participate.
Great, thank you. Somebody asked Lois, this is in response to talking about the site selection. Why not pick a big one with 100+ units next to the old Main Street ferry terminal?
When we put out our RFP, what we did is we reached out to providers, and the providers selected the locations that they thought were feasible. We did not predetermine the locations. And so we didn't get any proposals for any place near Main Street.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then so a person commented that the home prices would fall 7 to 10% based on research that was posted in an article, and I'll share the link with the city staff here today. But it looks like it's an article from Canada from 2018, so I'm not sure if that compares to us, but I will share the link along. And that is the last comment and question that we had. So from now, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. And I have a timer, so I will share my screen and put up my timer, which will put up a 2-minute clock. And we'll hear from each person that would like to comment in the order that you put up your raise hand reaction. So if you want to provide a public comment, share your thoughts for up to 2 minutes, we'd love to hear from you. Just go ahead and raise your hand and we will unmute you and get you good to go. Who wants to kick us off? Let's see, the mayor. Fantastic. Okay, let me, I'm going to ask to unmute you. Mayor, thank you. And then I'm going to share my screen so that you have the timer up there. Give me 1 second. All right, we're good to go.
All right, thank you so much, staff and everyone from Five Keys and Dignity Moves. As you probably know, I'm very excited about this project. I love this location. I think it's a great use of a kind of an odd shaped parcel, but it's also close to some wonderful amenities, grocery shopping, public transportation, and just a nice place to be. And those are attributes that the Main Street Ferry Terminal area would certainly lack. And also, I've had the privilege of visiting the Dignity Moves 5 Keys site in Mountain View. It's a bigger site, involves housing for adults on one side and families with children on another. So seeing's believing. I just wanted to share some news that I got today for 5 Keys folks. I did my State of the City this afternoon, and one of the folks in the audience was John Lipp, who's the executive director of FAWS. That's our Friends of the Alameda Animal Shelter. He loves that you're allowing pets at Dignity Village, and he offered the services of FAWS. They actually have a mobile unit that has, veterinary care and things. And so I know, at least I heard you say, and I know from other facilities that you partner with vets, but this is a wonderful local institution. So we'll make the connection, and if it is something helpful, then it will be. But anyway, we're thrilled that you're coming to Alameda and that we got the money from the state and from the county. Thanks all for me.
Okay, thank you. Next was Richard. Richard, I'm going to ask for you to unmute yourself. There we go. And then Richard, let me put up this timer and then you can start talking. Just give me 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. I just wanted to call and express my support for this project. I've actually had a chance to look at the Dignity News project in San Francisco, and it is very well maintained, and it is nice to see the level of security that is provided in all of these facilities. I'm really proud of the city and the city that I live in, that they're taking the time to provide for homelessness housing and other forms of housing, and basically doing a project that is good and beneficial for everyone. So I'll just give a big kudos to the city and the project team and express my support.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna reset this, and sorry, I have to keep going back and forth. But Zach Bowling, you're next. I will ask you to unmute and then I'll share my timer. Give me 1 second. All right, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I am in full support, and I just wanted to call in and state that I bike by here all the time, and I've always wondered, when are we going to finally do something with this piece of land? And I think there is nothing better that we couldn't use this land for than providing this kind of service in our community, because we just lack the facilities like this anywhere else on the island. And I just wanted to say, I'm saying this all on my behalf, but my organization, East Bay EMB, is also in full support of what's happening at this parcel. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. All right, let's see. I don't think I see any other raised hands. Anybody else want to share public comment tonight? Okay, well, I do have another question that popped up, so I'll go ahead and ask this question while you're waiting to raise your hand to share comment. Lois, I think this might be for you. What were the other locations that were proposed by providers that were not selected other than the bottle parcel?
It's Lisa on, maybe she can help me. I know there was the bottle parcel site.
The Marina,
Marina.
We
didn't
proposed
get-
the Marina Village in our RFP, but we received no proposals from.
Yeah, I think it was just the
partners.
bottle parcel.
We had one scattered site proposal.
Oh,
Scattered
scattered
site.
site. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Veronica. Yeah, that's
Seems
correct.
like a year ago.
Great. Well, I don't have any other raised hands and I don't have any other questions. So I think we might close it out. Veronica, do you want to close us out and let us know? I think Lois is going to put up the slides again and let us know how to stay connected. And you're muted, Veronica.
I can pull up the slide. Just give me one moment. So for next steps, we have a couple of locations you can go to. So you'll see this website. It says April 7th meeting, that it will be open and you can use it on an ongoing basis. So this is a location where if you haven't wanted to speak up tonight, that you would like to submit comment, you can use that website. And you can also sign up for our email list to get future updates. And then also down here is another place where you can also get onto the project email list. So www.alamedaca.gov/subscribe.
And I'll also just add that everybody that is at the meeting tonight, you had to register with your email address. And so we will take all of those email addresses and we'll put them onto the list. So if you receive an email from us because we put you on the list and you don't want it, you can unsubscribe. But otherwise, we will make sure that everybody's emails that are here tonight are captured. So yeah, with that, I guess we're done for tonight, and you can all have your 36 more minutes back. So we were expecting to go till 7:30. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you very much. Have a great night. Enjoy the beautiful weather. Thank you.